Does Mike ever get, does he ever relax and, not think of work? Because
if I'm somewhere and I'm in a social event, I'm thinking about getting back to work.
And this is nice what you're doing because this is out of your comfort zone.
100%.
I'm like a proud dad looking at his son doing.
When I first heard that Michael Morales has a
you're like,
podcast,
no way.
I'm
You're like, no.
Are you sure that's the same Mike Morales that I know? Are you sure? Let me take a look. It's him.
He's going to be in the background or something.
Oh my God.
He's behind the camera. Okay, Jollibee or home cooking?
Home cooking.
Yeah.
My wife is
She's
watching. Yeah.
I know her very well.
You're listening to Musings with Morales. Brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys, for agreeing to come out and have a conversation, revisit the relationship that we've had for the last 15 years, really.
Oh, wait. We need to cheers.
You're making me
Sure.
cry, man.
Where's yours?
Where's
there
yours?
you go.
Oh, it's right there.
Make it cry.
Okay. As you were saying, Mr. Morales.
So, end of the year 2009, there was some sort of economy bust, if I remember, in 2008, right? I think there was a real estate bust around that as well.
The recession.
Yeah. A lot of people kind of cashing in on their reserves and trying to find the next step in their life from where they're living and their means of paying for it to the actual profession that they'd carry on for the rest of their life. And I remember seeing a newspaper or a magazine called the Asian Journal and saying, like, this is a newspaper. It's a newspaper or a magazine?
It is. It's a broadsheet. Yeah.
Okay. And, well, my wife's Filipino, right? You guys know Maria, Kat? Yeah.
Shout out.
So we go, so we go to the store, and then I see the same thing everywhere I go. And, growing up around healthcare and dialysis, I knew that there's a lot of the Filipino community that's actually really attracted and good at healthcare. So we wanted to reach out to that community. We reached out to the newspaper and then said, I need a little more help because I know how to teach dialysis. I don't know how to do anything else. I think you probably remember me saying that to you guys at one point in our discussions, like, this is what I know how to do. Help me with the other stuff, right? And the Asian Journal actually said, here's somebody I need you to meet. So
that was me.
That was you, Paco.
Yeah. That's when I came
15 years ago, right?
Yep.
And I know there are still some videos circulating YouTube that would be really interesting for all of us to go back on and watch. I think they had a little bit more, not much more hair, but I definitely lost some.
Yeah,
right?
I'm the only one standing at this point.
Yeah. He had a smaller forehead.
I had a small.
Yeah.
I had a smaller, this one too, belly. But, it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
And the business that I started, that I was seeking help for, which trains dialysis technicians, nurses, has really evolved, kind of lasted some test of time, including COVID. But I didn't realize 15 years ago when I had that introduction that also friendships would last the test of time, that we would be sitting here today talking about where we're at today,
Right.
and having many interactions along the way.
Many life changes, even everything, personal and business. Yeah.
100%. So, I'd love to catch up with you guys a little bit, and I know you're anxious to be able to roast me a little bit about where things have moved since then, and you guys have been such a big part of a lot of those changes. But G3, why don't we start with you? 15 years later, when I met you at the time, you all were doing some creative stuff together. Maybe you could share a little bit about where we started and where things have evolved to today.
Yeah. Well, going back, so Paco was my bandmate. So we were in Intro Voice, and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet a good friend of mine, Michael Morales. He has a dialysis school, and he wants to chat about doing some automation and things." So I actually am a software engineer. Mm-hmm. So I run a company called ClayMind. We do apps, websites, and AI stuff now. But back then, this was like 2009.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was so apps were not yet there, right? I mean, the iPhone probably just came out. So it was really websites, web apps, things like that. And yeah, I remember coming here and then we were just like drawing stuff. This is what I want. This is what I want to happen. This is what I want to automate. So we were like, and I remember you had like an assistant, like this guy who was like,
Yep. My brother-in-law, actually.
Chris.
yeah. All right. Hi, Chris.
Yeah.
Where is he?
He still helps us out occasionally. He works with Spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to tell you that was kind of a fairly recent move for him.
Yeah.
But I have realized since then how valuable that guy was to the business. You know, one like loyalty of family and stuff like that, right? But he was actually really skilled at what he did.
He was always there. Like when I had questions, he would answer everything.
Yeah.
And
more than me.
Yeah, more than you.
I mean, to piggyback on that, no, Chris was more of a gatekeeper / buffer,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if we couldn't get to you,
Yep.
Chris was always there. Chris, can you please relay the message to Mike or be your gatekeeper?
I think there's so many people throughout the last 15 years that would look at like just exactly what you said, like couldn't get to you. I don't know if it's just type A or what would you guys say? Like I've been pretty manic. I don't know.
No. You're. I mean, of course, as the business grew, you were doing a lot of things, right? But then having him around made it easy for the vendors.
Yeah.
Right? Because the vendors could easily talk to him and communicate and have the message relayed to you, as opposed to being probably stranded in the middle of a process.
Yeah.
And as you were getting bigger,
15 years of business, right? I think we're at the point where like we're really working on scaling. Podcast is something that it's like it's not new. What we're doing here today, conceptually, it's something that you both told me a long time ago. I'm curious to get your thoughts on what's the right answer. We're in the third shooting of the Musings podcast, right?
Yeah.
And we see that there's a lot of discussion that is probably needed in the industry of healthcare, fitness, wellness right now. Like, what's your response to me finally listening to the advice that you guys gave 15 years ago?
I'll start with that because 15 years ago, I made you drive all the way to LA to actually do an infomercial with me, right? At that time, there weren't high-tech mics like this.
Yep.
We had to rely on the microphone of the camera. So there was that challenge. We had to do it, but it did well. And I was convincing you, you have to have the website. You have to have content online. You have to do this.
Yep.
And fast forward to today, I'm actually impressed as your producer, as your friend. I'm impressed because you can talk. And not only can you talk, you can engage. People just talk, they don't listen. You really listen. That was actually what you did with your students in the past.
Yeah.
And that's why they're successful, because you listened to what they needed and regurgitated the information to make them more successful.
Yeah. So what are you doing today, G3? Technology's changed so much. Like you said, apps and things like this were an app. What's going on today?
You guys heard of AI?
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "Oh no!" Like AI is, it's not going to take over the world. There was this movie where, it was just scary. Like everyone was like wearing their, you know that movie,
Yep.
and it was like,
Wait, what movie was this?
Well,
I don't know.
There's been several, but I'm thinking about the Netflix series that they put out on AI, and even I think some
Not
of them-
Alice in Borderland?
No.
No, this was like
Alice in Border-
the
That's one with
like
the
the
robots,
world
right?
was really, it was messed up. It was ugly, and then people were just like wearing their VR goggles, and it was just so nice. But in reality, it was like just it was messed up. But anyway, so AI is the fad now. People are using AI as assistants, which is also bad for like jobs because there's a lot of layoffs now.
Yeah.
Especially in the the content realm. There people are asking Chat GPT to generate content,
Right.
and so like you can choose like the level of creativity you want from the AI engine. So it's fun to use, but at the same time, there are jobs that are being lost.
Yeah.
But then again, you always need to use AI. There always someone. There has to be someone to validate the output of
Right.
AI.
Right. I'm guilty. I use ChatGPT a lot. I pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called, but like I
The
got
tokens you need like the more answers and response you get, and the
more
more
you pay,
it
what?
depends on the number of words, the characters
Oh, yeah?
that you put in and you get back.
That's a comment. I mean, every day that's open throughout the day for me. Everything from, kind of like campaigny type of things to just improve this email. I use it all the time because maybe you guys know this, but sometimes I'm too to the point. And
Too direct.
Yeah, too direct.
There has to be some buffer,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's like I'll forget to say good morning. It'll be a 8 a.m. start and 7:30. I'm already like emailing directly a question to somebody. So I try and use ChatGPT to give me a. It's weird, right? I use AI to give me a more human approach.
No, but that's fine.
At least. So sorry.
Do you find yourself like trying to be polite to ChatGPT? Is that what you do? Because I read that you're supposed to do that.
You know what, I am.
really try and use that in my prompts.
And I hope people are paying attention. Let's be polite to these AI bots, because we never know what's going to happen.
I think that's why I do it, because I read somewhere like exactly what you're saying. Like if you come off with an attitude or too demanding, like how's ChatGPT going to respond? Anyways, that's my extent.
No,
ChatGPT, right?
Mine is more than that. Mine is, remember, everything goes to the database of intent, right?
Right. Yeah.
And they know who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if one day they take over the world,
No, I've been pretty nice, man.
Yeah.
I always say please. I don't know about thank you, but I do say please to ChatGPT. I got to tell you that as we shifted into 2024, that was a real inspiration for.
you're not scared.
No, I think that on several levels, and I don't want to claim to be an expert on the massive transformation or the exponential growth framework, but when you look at trying to get things done, right? Things like leveraging and outsourcing.
Yeah.
Those are things that we hadn't done in the past. Using the algorithms, those are things that we haven't done in the past. We haven't been very data driven. So for 15 years, we've had a very sustainable business that's kind of hit consistent numbers and lasted, like I said, some tests of time, that now it's like, okay, what's your next move? Because everybody else they've shut down, like as far as schools like ours. So we have a hemodialysis training program, similar programs in California throughout COVID, all shut down. We actually grew and gained partnership with European investors to actually, add gas to the fire, right? And say, okay, let's really grow this thing into something that can impact healthcare, but impact communities as well.
When I connected both of you, that wasn't chump change investment. That was a big investment.
At
For
the
him,
time, it was very big.
Yeah, for him to write the syllabus,
Yep.
to turn it into how you wanted it
Yep.
to happen. What motivated you to do that? Number one. Number two, as he was presenting the numbers and what it would cost, how did you really embrace the importance of doing that? Because I bet you, doing that on the onset, at the start of DES, helped position you as a front runner. Am I correct? Or
No, 100%. So
the first question is,
I remember meeting G3, and I was going to bring this out earlier when you were talking, but I was so frustrated because I don't know if you realize it, but you're an engineer. and I remember these words so vividly as like, what event is going to trigger that? That's what you kept telling me. I was like,
Right.
dude, I want to push the button and it does this. You remember this? Like I kept telling you, like, I just want to push the button and it does. And but I need to know that was orientation 101 for me. For like, fast forward 15 years later, I own a businesses, but I also am a leader in commercial organizations that I work every day with engineers. And I got to tell you that was like really
an eye-opener.
Oh, yeah. Today, I still think about those first days when I met you, G3, and what event is... So I found myself to be very efficient in working as a commercial leader, like clinical leader, right? And then working with like developers in software or chemical engineering or mechanical engineering, things like this, because of kind of that early exposure with you. So one, I would say that making the decision to like build out systems early as a business owner is like critical. And then the urge is, especially with where I was, like, it was a sacrifice to come out of pocket, right?
Oh yeah.
Like a sacrifice that was hard to actually justify. And then you guys know this, that there's times where like you justify it and then you're in, and it's like, oh, things didn't work out when you thought.
If you don't know what it is, it looks like a website.
Yeah.
It navigates to one page to another, but it doesn't do anything other than just moving pages. And the engineer, so it's so much easier now compared to before. The engineer will just like, there's an inspect mode, so you click on inspect mode and you'll get the HTML right there and the CSS and everything right there.
Paste.
And just copy it to your code, and it makes things easier. You don't have to like, oh gosh, what hex color is this, or what's the margin for this, the padding, the font size.
Wait, but when you guys were working, there was none of those.
There's nothing like that.
No.
So this was like, okay, let's draw it out. What do you want?
This was 2009, 10.
2009.
Yeah, 9 to 10.
Because we started September 2009. I got to tell you guys, and maybe you remember this, I did not own a computer until 2007.
And he was calling it a database. He was calling it a database. So it's actually a web application, okay? So during that time, a database was like something that you couldn't see, okay? It was like where the data is stored.
Yeah.
There was like Microsoft SQL Server. There was Microsoft Access, if you were like...
I remember that now too. Yep.
You were like, GG, let's create my database. Okay, and I'm like, okay, your database. So I was thinking in my head, like when I imagine database, okay, only you can see that. Okay.
You did a really good job on that first database, and
thanks. I think.
Sorry, I'm still calling it database, man. So today are you building the LLMs and like?
Yeah, that's what I do. So I build. So I'm Claymine is still there. Anything that can automate things, we do.
So people commission Claymine to build out their LLMs for their businesses.
For
their case use or their use case.
Yeah. If we did your database right now. So you come to me, hey, G3, let's build a database. Okay. It would actually be, it would have more features. Like, if it was still like the same goal, like to...
It's the same thing, dude. Like Same exact thing. Like, you brought it up, like, I'm surprised you're like the audit, all that, like, it's exactly. No, it hasn't changed. I mean, state laws and the reporting requirements, sometimes subtle changes, right? But it's the same thing. It's like the same basic stuff that we did back then. Maybe a lot more data now in our in the actual.
If I were to do that same concept now, I would make things easier. Because before we were asking the students to upload stuff like their license and all that.
Yep.
So now that would be on the phone. It would be easier now to do things. We used to have reporting, right? And that was like to create one report, we had to do so much
to make the report actually.
And then if there was like an amendment to that, we'd have to like program it. Now it's a lot easier because now you could do your own form. You could build it yourself, and it's more of like instead of coming to me, I'll create something. I'll create something so that you can just do what you want to do.
I mean that's kind of where we're at. By the way, like with Salesforce, it took us a good chunk of time to integrate with our operations, right? But now we're getting to the point where we can create the reports, we can create the display lists, and alter them for different users, things like this. So it's kind of like you're saying, it's just the ability to out of the box, really.
Yeah, before there were so many businesses that went down because when the developer left,
boom, gone.
No more.
No, I feel that. I mean, I think about transitioning from Monday. We use Monday.com.
Okay.
For the longest time here. Then we were like, we're gonna scale. We're gonna get an enterprise system, right? So we went to Salesforce, and then I was like, oh my God, Monday is so much easier for my staff. It took them a long time to learn it, right? Salesforce.
Of course.
But in hindsight, I might have tried a integration specialist with Monday versus Salesforce if I were to do this all over again, because Monday does a lot of the same stuff. It's just easier to screw it up. Monday, like corrupt the data,
Yeah.
mess stuff up, right? But if we would have had an integration specialist instead of me building all the boards and things like this, we probably would have been in good shape. I'm really happy with Salesforce at this point. Like we finally started to move forward, but the price tag is way beyond what, if I don't scale, it causes bleeding. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah, Salesforce is super, super expensive.
Yeah,
we
so
got 10
yeah.
users. It's
yeah,
not
we
a cheap
focus like
investment.
Claymine just focuses on small to medium businesses, so it doesn't hurt their budget.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, like with where we're at, if we don't scale, Salesforce alone will bleed us to death. Seriously, like it's not a cheap investment for like 10 seats. And we also have the marketing cloud and the Einstein AI stuff like that.
Is it more of like a hostage software?
No, you can pull everything out and yeah, but at this point where we're at with the integrations, it would be really stupid for us to pull out because we've customized so much from rings, the soft phones to the
Oh my God.
DocuSign.
So everything's integrated into.
Oh yeah, and we're about to bring in like the QuickBooks and then even our learning management system. So there's truly a single source. If I want to look up, upstream or downstream, I will see.
See,
all the
so that's the
information.
thing. Like companies like startups, when they try to think of what tech stack to use and what
Yeah.
systems to use, they'd rather just get smaller systems that talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because of the API
Yeah.
Some
capabilities.
deja vu with this guy, man.
Me too.
And if they don't like one little thing, let's say the inventory system, they just replace it.
Right. And same thing, that's where we're at right now as well. Like DocuSign, DocuHub, DocHub,
Yeah.
right? We can use either QuickBooks or NetSuite, can integrate. So it's
Yeah.
those decisions, and NetSuite has its
Yeah,
own.
even like enterprise software, they're trying to modularize their system. Like for example, Shopify, it's an e-commerce engine, right?
Right.
And when you sign up for Shopify, you would have to use their themes, their product catalog, and everything.
Yeah.
But now they're opening up. If you just want to use their back end, if you just want to use their product catalog, their database, you can do that, and you would just design your own
For the
website.
front end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
front
your
end
own
of it.
front end.
Yep.
So, yeah, because they realize that there's so many tools out there that can, you don't want to lose your market, right?
Yeah.
If you can just open up like one portion of your tech, your product, then that's also good.
Yeah.
You give the customers more options.
Yeah. Paco, where are you? I mean, when we started out, you were in some different sort of marketing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Marketing ventures. I've been pretty consistent in marketing, but I mean, like you said, you guys were bandmates. Like, where are you at then? Where are you at now?
So when we met, again, with regard to the band, I was with Introvoice. I still am with Introvoice.
Yep.
He was with Introvoice. He's no longer with the band, focused on his
Was there like
engineering
scandal or
career.
what? Like, why did you guys? Why'd you guys break up? Like,
we're still best buds.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
He's like a brother to me.
was it because you have more hair than him that you guys?
No. we've been together since college days.
Oh, is that right?
Philippines.
Even before
Yeah.
Introvoice,
Even
we were
before, yeah.
bandmates in
Yeah.
another band.
I remember approaching him, like just like that. I go, one day we'll be bandmates. Remember? I said that.
And we were best buddies. We were also like fighting on stage. You know how sometimes we would just like
And
get
we're-
irritated at each other.
Yeah, we're good songwriters together also. Like we can write a song even, I'm having goosebumps about it, even miles apart. He'll send something and he knows that I can do something out of it and vice versa. But
So you guys iterate off of each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
But this guy, I've learned a lot from this guy. You remember back in the Philippines, he's a very creative guy. So he not only composes, he not only plays the drums. He used to do like graphic design. Would
Yeah,
you believe
right?
that?
Yeah.
And he taught me Photoshop.
yeah.
That's so weird. Like,
I was even featured on one of the Inside Photoshop books, remember?
Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a worldwide publication.
and I remember Paco, can you please teach me Photoshop? Because he was getting like these projects from like,
Yes.
the television
So what was he
stations and-
photoshopping? Like six pack or what? Like, what did he do?
No, before, excuse me,
Guns.
No, he would do album covers, man, like for bands and
advertising layouts, album covers, covers of magazines or inside magazines. I just like creating. At the same time, I like sharing stuff. Like I don't make it proprietary. I can actually relate to Elon Musk's mindset, wherein I'll think of something, I'll throw it out there, and you guys might be able to make something out of it to make
Yeah,
the world
yeah.
a better place.
Yeah.
So that's more of my paradigm, right? And so when you met me, I was with Verizon selling the Verizon Yellow Pages. They were doing websites. And I didn't like the websites that they were giving to clients. And so I would talk to him, I would talk to JJ, who's not here. So I said, I'll sell the service, you do the service, and we'll let G3 QA the service. Because we needed someone with credibility.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I needed to be able to pitch it the way everything.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
done. So when we met, it was supposed to be I have a client, he needs a website. That was it, right? So I come in, and I couldn't help it. I had to ask you.
That's right. You did in my first web. I'm
Yeah.
just remembering that now. Like,
Yeah,
I
the
remember
first
the way.
website.
I'm kind of remember the way it looks too. It was
Right?
actually pretty damn cool
Yeah.
for the times. It was like way
Yes.
ahead, right?
So when you told me what you wanted to do,
Yep.
just so that we can create something,
Yep.
and let this be my gift to you, so you can
Yep.
do something with it, right? And you're like, no. Let me gift you with taking you and your family to Palm Springs. So let's. And the reciprocity really stayed with me because I knew then that it wasn't just a transactional relationship, like it was a friendship.
Yep.
Which was why when you needed to scale up, it was me just handing it over to G3.
Yep. Yeah. Here's the intro to
Yeah.
the resource you
Yeah,
need.
yeah.
We took off on that.
Yeah.
And we've kind of, I think we've mingled.
Yeah, and then
we've
from there
continued to mingle.
on, I moved out of the Yellow Pages, went into healthcare, did the whole ambulance thing. And how ironic, like with the ambulance companies or the ambulance industry, dialysis was the bread and butter of
Yeah.
non-emergency ambulance.
Yep. Drop off and pick up, or pick up and drop
Yeah.
off, right? Yeah.
6 times a week.
People need to get, well, it was three times a week
Right.
for the
but
patients.
6 times.
Yeah,
6
back and forth.
transports,
Yeah, exactly.
And if that was Medicare Part B, that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I did that for 11 years.
Yep.
And in the process, I did the whole podcast thing because that's what I really wanted to do.
Yep.
To inform, to create,
Yep.
to just share. And then we reconnected again. Right? With regard to, maybe I should do a podcast. I'm like, you should, because every business nowadays,
Yeah. They got something that's generating content.
and it
right?
builds credibility, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, it's funny because when we talk about the podcast, I think the first memory I have of it was you not telling me for business purpose, was for family, and
Yeah.
and you had mentioned to me that like, hey, I started like a diary of a sort, so that one day,
When I'm gone.
yeah, like the people I care about can see what I was about. They can have memories, right? And like, yeah, I got to do that because I have 4 kids, right? At the time, I probably had 3 kids when we
Right.
first met because my youngest is 9. So I've known you longer than Mason's been born,
Yeah.
right? But I remember thinking about that at the time, and of course, all of a sudden, time caught up to me. So now that makes a lot more sense of like wanting to capture the essence of who I am, right? Like the kids see us grow, they see us grow up. They've
Right.
seen us grow up, right? They've seen us make the mistakes and get the wins, but they never quite just hear from us on like that wisdom of like,
Yeah.
avoid this, go for this, right? And when you ask the question about, the first strike of bringing you on, the first strike of talking with G3 and bringing on the database,
I love it. Day-to-day.
Right? Looking back on things, I'm 46. You guys are 46, right?
Yeah, 46. Yeah.
I'm older, 47.
We can't go back, but talking about the kids thing, I strongly believe that like what we're doing here, hopefully that would be some sort of
Resonate, yeah,
reflection
yeah.
on the kids and the grandkids. But going back to like why did I do this? Is I want to impart on the people who have come through the programs and the services that I've offered and the advertisements and things like this, and give a little bit more. Right? I know there are a lot of people who haven't made a decision to pursue their dreams in healthcare. And when I say dreams, it's like, I don't know if that's a dream or if it's a purpose. Deny it all you want, but this is what you're supposed to do, right? Like you grew up with somebody who suffered something that you have a better lens on than most people, right?
Interesting.
And then also like the people that this happens to most, my father's South American, my mother's American, but the Hispanic Latino population, very high incidence for chronic illness, right? And then so is the African American population.
Right.
And to say that, it's pretty much in the United States, if you have an ethnic background, you're at a higher incidence, right?
Right.
So that was like an identification for me. One, the population that it impacts, and then two, what they're going through. So I was like, hey, it's a purpose. Like I have to do this. It wasn't my choice. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because it's what I'm supposed to be doing. Since I made that decision, which was in 2000, it's become like what I love to do. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel, you guys know this about
Yeah.
me. Like I don't feel like I'm working, and it's not just dialysis, right? So especially G3, we connected during COVID, and that was like out of my wheelhouse, but wasn't it a big project? And we got into some pretty serious projects together, right? Do you remember any of those? Anything come to mind of kind of the craziness of the times and what was going on? 2000, what, end of 2000?
Oh, when
2020.
Yeah. When I went with you to OC, remember that?
Yep. Yeah. So Paco, I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
like,
I mean he has a lot of connections.
Oh, yeah,
so
he does.
even some of his connections are still like
With you.
still calling him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. And we were just like brainstorming about a lot of things, like what could we do with this? He would introduce me to his friends. Hey, G3 knows how to do this. Like, what can we build? So he's the guy who has a lot of ideas,
Right.
and he always thinks of me. So like when he has questions,
We all think of you.
no, he's like, hey, G3, I just met someone. I'd like to pick your brain on this. What do you think of this? So, we text a lot about new
You know
things.
what? You know what's good about him, and I hope people are gonna.
his hair is good.
Yeah, aside from the hair, like I hope people catch on to this.
Good hairstyle.
Like you and I, we have ideas in our head. You are able to tell me your idea, and I'm able to regurgitate it back to you, and you're going, "Yep, that was what I was thinking of." G3 is also articulate. He has critical thinking. But the beauty about G3, guys, if we have an idea, we design it in our head.
Yeah.
You give it to G3. When he regurgitates it out, it's got the schematics and
Right.
every possible process.
You make me sound like an LLM.
But it's true though, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, it is.
Like,
It's
think about
100%.
when you have a
Yeah.
conversation with G3, you know full well that there's confidence that if he catches on what I want to do, he'll be able to make it happen or tell me
Yeah.
there's no technology to make it happen,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So I think we're picking on you. We're gonna roast me, but we're gonna roast C3. But it's
Okay,
like,
go for it.
and my experience again over the last 15 years, because the starting of my business was a new chapter in like profession for me, because
Right.
I was a tech, biomed, water specialist, educator before I owned a business. After I owned a business, I became consultant, subject matter expert, operational expert, things like-
Administrator of a
right,
sniff.
right, yeah, things like that, right? So, looking back on it, it's like the things that G3 or somebody like G3 is able to do is not only say like, okay, what's the problem, because I give you the problem.
Right.
But he's like able to, like you said, actually create the schematic to the solution.
Yeah.
And the difference in you specifically with other engineers that I work for is a lot of engineers have asked me, like, just tell me the problem. Let's not touch the solution. Don't try and give me any advice on how to come to the solution, right? And G3's always been like, you are the solution. Like,
Yeah.
you have the answer, right? And that's what frustrated me in the beginning was like, tell me the event that triggers this thing to happen. And I'm like,
You
push the button. That's what it is, right?
You're
Push the
absolutely
button.
right, because this guy, if you give him the problem and you say, I think this is the solution, he's gonna find a way to put that solution into fruition for you to be able to
Yeah.
to use it.
Yeah.
Because that you're comfortable with that solution unless you can come up with a better.
Yeah, I remember Mike would say, "Hey GT, this is all we have. This is what we're using right now. So how do we make this talk to this?" So I'm like,
Same
okay,
story, man.
Up to now?
Yeah, same story. Is it never ending?
Yeah.
I mean, 2009, I knew how to teach dialysis. Everybody was referred personally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's how we got
Yeah.
to Asian Journal, and then
Yeah.
we met you. Today, things are so much different. Like,
Wow.
with that bus that we talked about, people were coming in ready to pay and invest in their future.
Yeah.
Today's much different landscape, right? When you look at the culture today of a consumer for education, the things that I've heard over the last 15 years really involve like ways to not have to invest too much into your education. We do have approval, and we've gained that over these years, but to gain like grants or get assess grants for the students so that they can get tuition reimbursed. Whereas in 2009-10, like everybody came and said, hey, here,
Yeah.
I want to pay for my own education.
Yes.
Today they look for grants and financial aids and things like this. And to gain the actual number of students we did back then through self-pay, we have to do like an enormous amount of marketing.
Wow.
Which then involves like everything that we were back then, websites and campaigns and AI and now Salesforce, and be able to process. So you have to keep very high performance with that. And when you look
Yeah.
at, Paco said, hey, I saved up money to pay for my education. And I'm being very stereotypical, but if you did that, you're going to do the homework, you're going to do the classwork, you're going to be on time with stuff.
Because it was your investment.
That's right. That's right. It's kind of like on-the-job training, right? Like
Yeah.
on-the-job training, people kind of fall asleep during on-the-job training because they're already hired. They don't really.
Right.
It's less of an incentive of where I'm going to school. I got to learn these things to be able to even get the opportunity for a job. I have to excel, right? And again, we do have those approvals. Those are fairly recent to my business to be able to get grant or have eligibility for students' tuition through grant. We found a pretty big challenge with it, though. On the motivation, certain individuals will just be looking for an entitlement
Right.
or a subsidy and not really follow through with the whole program. So that's shifted in recent years. It really is specifically since COVID, where we see a lot of the enrollees, they're going through grant process. They're looking for those sort of subsidies. And we still have to keep the same sort of performance metrics where,
Wow.
as a school that provides service to consumers, a certain percent of those consumers have to get jobs, have to graduate, have to make a certain amount of money. If we have people coming that are not really focused on that for whatever reason, and we don't get those metrics, then we'll lose that eligibility. So it's a tough filtering process, right? Like if we're going to take an individual who's coming through a grant, we want to make sure that they're going to actually finish up the program. And it comes back to purpose, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do you even want to do it? Why do you want to be a dialysis tech or a nurse?
So a while ago, you talked about that this is not your dream, this is your purpose. So what's your dream?
My dream is maybe that's a difficult question for me. My dream, my vision is to educate as many people interdisciplinarily as I can. Back then it was different than today, because when I met you guys, I knew I could do what I was doing, which was teaching people at a institution face to face. And it was kind of like when I was a tech, I could only take care of 12 people a day, right? as a teacher, I could only take care of or teach as many people could fit in this room.
Class, yeah.
Right? But times have changed, right? Right now we're in Bellflower. We have one location, physical location. We can train so many people here in this building, but we also have the ability to do things like online, virtually. And that's what we've explored since COVID is how to really scale through technology, right? Technology is really old, virtual meetings, right? Zoom, Google Meets, things like this. And then we've built on contracts so that when we do something virtual to, let's say, a individual in Texas, we have a place to coordinate a clinical rotation for that person. So they can get class online, and then a clinical rotation in whatever state or region they're in. So we've established those agreements over the years. So vision again is really, as many people as possible, but what's the goal is to improve care through that education. So when I train, it's not even me anymore. When the staff train an individual in this program, my vision, my hope is that that individual would improve care for those people that they improve care and improve the life of those people that they care for. There's technical stuff involved in that. There's behavioral, like show up on time every time. I'm big on that, right? Like if you're not on time, you're not there every time, like you're not of any use, right? And then there's the therapeutic value, which is the tough part, because some people have good work ethic, some people have good skills, but when they're around you, they're not the right social person. So we try to impart that on people as well. As if I was on dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours each day, and I've got to be with you, like hopefully you're tolerable,
right?
But more so, hopefully you're therapeutic to me. Like you're adding value besides putting needles in my arm.
Yeah, empathy plays a big part. Yeah,
100%, and not just empathy. I mean, like bring some flavor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're an individual, right? So, like bring the empathy, bring the compassion.
Character.
Yeah, bring some.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I went to dialysis and I have to do this, but I got to be with G3, and he's a hell of a guy that has a lot of creative ideas and funny jokes and a magic trick here or there.
That's a good way of putting it. Because remember Julian, our sound engineer, when the guy was going through dialysis, he would say, "Oh, Jenny's gonna be there today. Jenny's my girlfriend."
I think there's probably more girlfriends and boyfriends at dialysis than there are anywhere. Like that's kind of an instant. If you're taking care of a patient, you're gonna be her boyfriend, right?
Exactly. Something like that. Yeah.
Or the
girlfriend.
lady. Yeah. It's pretty normal stuff. So I gotta say, like somebody who has chronic illness, right? If I'm diabetic and I choose to go to the doctor knowing I'm diabetic and that like I've probably been not doing the things that I am supposed to do, right? But I still choose to go to the doctor. Like, what does that really tell you? Like, that tells you that I want to get better. I want to live. I want to know my health status, right? So when people come to dialysis, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know they want to live. And it's like, okay, just showing up in the door is one thing. And for me, I was a dialysis, I'm still a dialysis tech. It's like you showed up in the door. Now, my responsibility is to show you how that's really possible. Give you the tools to live. Coming to dialysis is 4 hours, 3 times a week. But you have, I know I messed up on this in some of our previous conversations, but you have 168 hours in the week, right? And you come for 4 hours, 3 times a week. That's 12 hours out of the 168. You really better be equipped with, like, what are you supposed to do in between dialysis, right? And that's where a dialysis tech, a dialysis nurse sits down with you and one cares about what you're going through and then applies that care to now tools. Here's like why you should do this, why you should avoid that, whether it's the fluid restrictions or the diet restrictions. That's the therapeutic aspect of it, right?
And is that something you can teach also? I'm just curious, like, if you say that's a big part of it, the compassion and is that teachable?
Well, I think it is, but it like you said, like, is somebody ready to learn? So if I'm just going to give an example that's not related to teaching, but if I am a bigot or a sexist, or I have a certain religion and I'm closed door to everything, hearing everything else, right? The only way for me to change is to hear that other side of it, right? So I'm a big believer in intersubjectivity, hearing multiple angles, right? So here's the lens of a 50-year-old, here's the lens of a 20-year-old.
Very different.
On dancing in public. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's different, right?
Twerking. Yeah.
Yeah, twerking, right? It's going to be a different, right? It's just normal for the 20-year-old, right?
yep.
For the 50-year-old, you're like,
what?
Yeah, what in the hell are they doing? So I'm a big believer in intersubjectivity, and in healthcare we call that like interdisciplinary, where like the patient's lens is a lens, right? Or the person that you're serving is a lens, and your lens is different than his lens, and it's different than my lens. So we have to learn the patient's lens, and then we also have
Patience takes precedence over everybody else.
to learn 100. Like
100%,
that's where we get our breathing pattern from, right? Like our speed of talking, right? Like our energy. We should
Mirror.
mirror or enhance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We should definitely not take it the other way, like the energy level of the patient, right? But we have to drive off that purpose, which is the patient. Then we've got all these players on the team that for when you talk about can it be taught, a social worker has a much bigger tool bag than a dialysis technician, right? Or in most patients for that matter, right? Get like my example, right? My wife sees me as a breadwinner, right? If I couldn't work anymore, what would that do
To the family.
to that, right? So that social worker has all that lens, right? As a dialysis tech, I always say, hey, you need to kind of key in on the social worker, you need to key in on the dietitian, you need to key in on the nurse, and get that interdisciplinary intersubjectivity, right?
You know what? Okay. I guess to his point, he's like saying maybe that should be emphasized within the curriculum.
Oh yeah.
If everybody's not doing that, maybe, right? Maybe dialysis education services should be doing that
Yeah.
to differentiate it from the rest of.
Well, I think we've done that from day
Yeah.
number one. We brought on social workers, dietitians, nephrologists, nurses, biomeds, technicians into the mix. We've had patients come in and talk, and even virtually come and talk to our students, because, like I said, you really have to learn that lens of what therapeutic is. And when you're caring for somebody, the primary influencer is, can you yield yourself? Right? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to care for you,
Right.
then I got to let go of,
Yeah.
I'm tired, or I had to get up at 2 a.m. and just to take care of you at 4 a.m. or,
Yeah.
you always complain, or you always scream when the needle, like, I got to focus on
On you,
On-
on the patient.
on number one,
Yeah.
right? So it really takes that ability to yield, and I think that's I'll go back to kind of the times. It's I don't want to say it's a lost art, but it's something that is starting to shift to where people can actually yield themselves.
Because it's been transactional, it's been instant, it's been doing it. Let's just get it over with. No, it's not. It's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Each person shouldn't be a statistic. Now, interestingly, would you wave to your staff and say, "I'll take over the class"? Are you still able to do that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoy doing that actually. It's something I never want to stop doing, to tell you the truth. Like, I love interacting with people, whether it be the patients that I've cared for in the past, or the teams that I work with, like internally with the businesses that I own, or the companies that I work with. But I really enjoy that caregiver practitioner education opportunity, because I think that, like when we talked about empathy, that I have something that not everybody was either cursed or privileged with, right? To grow up with somebody who was on dialysis, right? I see that as both a curse and a privilege. And I get a lot of students who the reason they started dialysis was because their mom, their grandma, their sister, whatever it is. And it's weird to say, like, that's an ideal student, somebody who's like suffered, right?
Yeah.
But that level of empathy, like when they've seen it personally, you know that they're gonna, I think I mentioned it earlier, like everybody is somebody, someone, they had that someone, right? So they're going to carry that experience over into somebody else's life who they don't know, that they didn't grow up with, is not their blood, or,
Yep.
that wasn't adopted into their family, or whatever it is. I think that's a really beautiful thing, to be able to, like I said, yield yourself and treat somebody like the person that you love the most in this world, that you don't have any obligation to outside of what you're lucky enough to be able to do as a profession, right? Again, that's why I don't feel like since I started doing this that I've worked. I work pretty damn hard, but I don't feel like I have to. I'm not doing something that I don't want to do. I'm not doing something that is painful for me. Even G3, you know, we went through a year of the COVID thing that wasn't dialysis related, but it was healthcare related. And to tell you the truth, like schools were shutting down during COVID. We went remote. we went remote. We made it. Like California, there were like 20 schools before COVID. Now there's like six or seven.
Wow.
So we went remote. I was literally teaching remote classes at that time from a large convention center in Orange County where we were testing just at that center. You went there.
Yeah.
When you went there, how many people were in line?
Not sure.
More than 1,000 probably.
What?
You couldn't get it. The traffic was so bad.
Yeah, we were
It was
doing
like-
like 2,500 on that site. And then, so that was the Anaheim Convention Center. We were testing and doing telehealth for about 2,500 patients on that site alone. Then we were
Yeah,
doing
it was
6,000
crazy.
in
It
Orange
was
County
crazy.
Fairgrounds. And we had about 50 other sites that were smaller, like maybe 100 to 500 tests a day. And that was a big command center, right? Like, I'm sure when you walked in there, you're like, oh my,
Yeah.
like what's really going on here, right? But it was the times, right? It was the same thing. Like, how did I get into COVID, right? A nephrologist introduced me to this group and was like, hey, you do education, you train people quickly. There's a lot of people who need to be trained to help people with COVID right now. And I was kind of sitting, not being able to do anything else. Like, you can tell I go to the gym, right? I got cut out of the gym. And it was like, well, what are you going to do now? Sit at home, isolate yourself, or do what you're supposed to do and take care of people, right? And I took the call to go work for this COVID operation where we were testing, we were doing telehealth, and then we eventually ended up vaccinating.
Right.
And we talked to G3 about very similar things. You know, it's the same thing. It's like intentionally we started the dialysis training school, right? Out of circumstance, we started a COVID operation, but the same things were coming up, right? Like, hey, we need a source of information, we need APIs,
He needs a new database.
Yeah, I need a database, man.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted Mike because of the education part of it. Like he was like really the education subject matter expert, you know. And so we were thinking of how to like other guys there had other specialties, but you know, they were trying to put things together. How do we create like this
An ecosystem.
an
really.
ecosystem,
Yeah. Yeah.
where there's education, there's I don't know.
So
Human
when
resource,
Mike brought you, what was going through your head?
I was trying to understand, like as an engineer, first you really have to figure out what the end product will be. Like what is really the end product? Right? There could be multiple products, but then you wanna start with like the MVP, like the minimum viable product is the one you're gonna be presenting to like the stakeholders.
And then from there, you reverse engineer to where you're at right now.
When you're pitching something like to investors, the MVP has to have an impact.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And from there, they'll ask you how are you gonna scale. And that's when you start like adding all these other things. Okay, we're gonna make money here, we're gonna make money there. So but really the core
That's the
product
MVP.
is the
Yeah.
MVP.
Yeah. Yeah, we were bringing in learning management system, human resource information system. I can't remember. We were even talking some blockchain stuff and things like that. Well, I mean, when you think about it, like, and this is to me super interesting with the AI and the database. The database, right? But when I started with this COVID operation, one of the big things that the founders were talking about, and you'll probably remember this, is just all the data, right? That you know, we're seeing X number of thousands of people a day, and this is a lot of data that is not
because
only identifiers,
you know why
but-
data is so important to people because of course you can analyze that, right?
Yep.
You can build analytics, and based on the trend, you know to whom to sell, right?
Yeah.
Who's gonna buy the most? Who's gonna not gonna buy? Who's gonna buy? And that's really important. So you get an advantage if you have the data for that.
Yeah.
And because of the thousands of people,
Yeah, this was like, I mean, in 9 months, we probably had like 750,000
What?
individuals, data points. Yeah, it was just a crazy, crazy number.
So let's go back to the-
different tool, right?
back to the basic question as to why we're all here. How are you?
I'm good. 15 years later, like I said, there's been a lot of fluxes. 2023, after a year negotiation, my baby, which is the school dialysis education services, profitable, captured the eyes of a technology company, virtual reality AR, AI, is owned by a Czech Republic fund called Creditas. They own a couple banks. We started into a partnership conversation, which really stemmed out of like virtual reality simulations that were hemodialysis based. You can actually get in goggles and do some of the training as a hemodialysist. It's pretty cool. And then 3D models and things like this that really enhance just the learning tools, right? So we captured their eye. We sat in about a year of negotiation and just we came to a term sheet. And it actually when we came to a term sheet, we sat in a year of trying to execute on that term sheet through the legal docs, right? It got very hung up. And if you can think about as, owning your businesses,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, I'm going to make the commitment to allow an investor to come in, go through all those exercises for a whole year. That's
While running your business.
while running a business. That's a massive sacrifice, right? So after a year of this, I was getting to the point of like, this is starting to bleed us, starting to be a sacrifice. And I talked to the fund, said, hey, this is just dragging on. Like, we're probably going to have to pull back. They said, no, let's just do it direct. So we went direct with Creditas. They became our investor. We worked in partnership with their subsidiary, which is that VR company, right?
Right.
That's where the ability to realize what we've known since we've met you guys, that we should start to produce content regularly, not just for the purpose of bringing people into our school, but really the whole vision of what we're doing is to improve care, right?
Right.
And improving care doesn't just start with the people we teach. It reaches the people that hopefully will prevent themselves from getting to kidney failure. Or if they do get to kidney failure, at least they're better informed on what their options and what their tool bag looks like and who the people that they work with, dialysis techs, nurses, dietitians, which we've already highlighted in a previous episode here, who these people are, what they do, how to leverage them, how to delay things. If you get to the point where you need kidney care, who's on your team? How do you leverage them? How do you make the right relationships? Those sort of things.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what's next after that?
Well, I would say with starting a school again 15 years ago, right away, I got into a lot of consulting, electronic medical records, pharmaceuticals, the COVID operations, the nursing home that you brought up, which was all stemmed from trying to bring dialysis to these care settings, right? We've taken a lot more consulting in recent years. So business to consumer operations, B2C, that's been our bread and butter and our mode of operation for 15 years. In the past few years, we've taken on more consulting to where it's become a larger revenue producer for us, working with independent facilities on their education programs, staffing organizations when they're short, like in the case of the strikes that just happened, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago here in California. Some of these hospitals, they were hard up for staff, right? Like they're striking. We still have dialysis patients that if they don't get their care,
Wow.
what's going to happen to them, right? So staffing is something we're starting to get into. Continuing education, which we've been doing for all these years, but we'd like to grow on the content base for continuing education, which is needed to maintain certification and licensure. I said those consulting, we do things like auditing.
Yeah.
So, if I would say what's next that's out of the wheelhouse, it may be to add more programs to our educational portfolio. And it would still kind of keep a central theme of, like, let's start with nephrology because this is such a highly incidental population, right? That they end up in nursing homes with CNAs, LVNs.
Yeah.
They end up in doctor's office with medical assistants. So we'd like to branch out what we do here into other certifications, licensures, so they have that same intimacy with the knowledge base that the dialysis staff do.
Are you still doing the the e-learning courses?
Yeah, we still have the e-learning, so that's another thing that has been kind of like a live wire. Is we have an open source product right now, Moodle. We've looked at the out of the box, and I don't know if it's the right way to say it, like closed source.
I remember Moodle.
Yeah. So actually, it's working out better than we thought it would, because we've looked at like some of the ones we looked at before, like Udemy and all those sort of things. But then we've looked at like Docebo and Absorb, and I like those, but the ability to actually customize seems to be best with open source at this point. I can't say where we'll be in another year or so, but at least for the next year we'll be there.
I also do e-learning modules, but this one is more gamified. So there's interaction between, it makes things more interesting. And
Is this your own platform or something that you?
It's my own platform.
Well, we got to take a look. Right? Take a look. Yeah, for sure. It's something that we're
because traditional e-learning is just you read what's on the screen, and there's like an exercise, multiple choice. But if you make it like a game,
more interactive,
leaderboards and those sort of things. Right?
Yeah, you drag this to the right, to the right object. It makes things more interesting.
Yeah, I gotta say, like when we had a student recently that left dialysis as a tech to run her family business when her parents were kind of at end of life, basically. So she let her certification go. Parents passed away, rolling up the business now, coming back to get certification, right? And back then, well, she was about 10 years ago. We didn't have any e-learning stuff, right? Today we have some e-learning stuff, right? And it's like, it's kind of similar to like a college course what you do online with quizzes, 3D models, discussion forums, things like this. And she actually said, that's just not for me. I like the in-person, just, the old school, like, let me come to class, listen, interact with my classmates and my students. And I got to tell you, I like that too. But how do I scale if everything has to be me to you right here in front of each other?
That's true. That's true.
It's so funny. Like, I have a 5-year-old, right? And now she knows how to read notes, piano. She knows how to read sheet music. And you know what taught her? Simply Piano. There's this app on her iPad.
Send me the link, dude. My son's taking piano right now.
Dude, like in like a couple of days, I think like 4 to 5 days, she was already reading notes. And why? You know how Simply Piano did it? It made it look like a game for her. So you unlock like, prizes if you're able to.
There are levels.
There are levels.
Yeah.
It's like a game. So if you incorporate a game into like your your course, it makes things more.
So let me ask you, like, because you're 46, right? So you're gonna teach a 47-year-old, or you're gonna teach a how old again? You're
47.
Five.
So you're gonna teach a 47 or a 5-year-old. Would that sort of stuff work with the 47-year-old?
It could be. It could be like a different kind of approach, but still, something that involves like problem solving and making it look more.
How are they gonna get to? Because you remember I did a remote patient monitoring company.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge we had was the phone. Like and having to access through your phone, right? So we ended up going to a device that didn't require a phone. I don't know if you remember this, but we had a remote patient monitoring, which is like basically, or physiologic monitoring, right? Where you could take your blood pressure, your blood sugar, whatever, with a device. It will populate to the doctor's portal right away, right? And the first option we had was like, I'll have my phone with an app, and then I'll have a blood pressure cuff that you have to sync up to that app, right? I'll take my blood pressure, then I'll look at the app, then I'll export it to the portal of like the doctor's portal, right? Nobody can do that.
No.
Nobody could do it.
First of all, the connection for Bluetooth or charging or whatever.
Yeah, forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we ended up getting just a blood pressure cuff that was cellular synced, right? I don't know what the right word is, but like identified for that patient or synced up to that patient. So as soon as they got it, if they took a blood pressure, it was syncing to G3's record, because that was the biggest pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And when I think about things like trying to learn piano, like my son does the same thing. He's got like apps and stuff. He's got a teacher too.
Yeah.
And it's funny. He asked for an extra lesson.
Oh,
I was like tripping. I was like, oh man, give him the extra lesson.
Yeah.
My wife was like, it's $30. I was like, so what? He asked for an extra lesson. Like, let him go, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I find that challenge in teaching people is like what people how they used to learn and how they learn now. All right, it's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
but you see, that's what's good about him, and so the reason why I think the reason why all of us connect well is because you want results. You're results driven. This guy hates steps.
Yeah. Yep.
He hates steps.
Yep.
And so I every time I have a conversation with G3, it's more like, that's why I have to shift my brain. It's more 10 steps. The goal is, how can you make it 3?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
How can we eliminate the unnecessary or the clutter
Yep.
and all?
Well, anything online,
Yeah.
I think that's the way it is, right? Like nobody wants to click
No,
or swipe or
Hence, yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
your thoughts.
I guess it's just like how an engineer, like, our goal is to make things more efficient, like
There you
take
go.
out the bottleneck.
The redundancy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I got to
yeah.
ask you guys a question. Again, we started 15 years ago. I know for sure, and we've talked about this, Pago, that I was in a place where every dollar was a sacrifice. You guys recognize that.
Yeah.
I know for 100% that I got consideration that was way beyond. I guess a very real question, was that because you needed the money, or was it because you saw something in what we're doing here that would put us here 15 years later, 20 years later, we're going to be in a different place, right? But what was the reason to kind of trust in me or the business or the purpose? What was that?
It was the latter.
If you ask me, so people who come to me, there are a lot of people who come to me and, I want to build something. And, during that time, it was just me, right? I didn't have a team. Like, my team has grown. But when you're limited and you have all these projects coming and you want to work on, meaningful projects. And,
Yeah.
And I found that, yours was for a good cause. And it was not some app that, just, did crazy, like meaningless stuff. So this was something that I wanted to do also and help out, So projects like, like DES was something that I really wanted to help you out with.
Totally agree with him, because when I met you, like what I said earlier on, right? I thought the goal was go in, get him a 5-page website, and get out and build the website, and that was it. Done, right?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I went to the first facility, and when I saw you, I was looking at someone who wanted to do something and change people's lives. And that's what we did for the slogan, right?
Yep.
Because that's what I saw in you. Let's do something meaningful. During those times, I was working for someone else.
Yep.
And I more than gladly gave what that someone else, my employer, was paying me to you, so we could do something that was worthwhile for you. And I wouldn't change it, because the reason why I'm here, and I think the reason why he's here, is because of you and your heart and what you intend to do.
So I appreciate that, and appreciate you guys both, like all these years. Before we were introduced, kidney disease, kidney failure, dialysis, what was your exposure? And like, I think we had a personal click,
Yeah.
but, and then there's like the do something that's meaningful, that's got impact.
My sister went through dialysis. She has lupus, and she's had like 2 kidney transplants now. But before, I used to take her to like a dialysis center, and which is why it also
Struck home.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was something that I know dialysis.
But and that's the reason why I was asked is if I were to talk to an African American or Hispanic and say somebody who's diabetic or oh yeah, my whole family, right? And then you're both Filipino. When we think about the Filipino demographic, sometimes people would think like, well, they might classify as Asian, specifically, and say, oh, they're not like high incidence, but there's actually a high incidence of type 2 diabetes in the Filipino population, right? And hypertension as well. And I always tell this story about, I know I've told you guys many times, when I first met Katrina and she made me fall in love with her through sodium, right? Like she dumped the whole, she dumped the whole soy sauce, right? So it's like, oh yeah, for sure. There's got to be massive incidence of population.
So
in the
have you
population
tried
that eats like that.
the patis? What's that?
Right? Fish sauce?
Fish sauce, patis.
But
Makes it
rice,
taste
I
right?
have an
though,
uncle.
yeah.
I have an uncle who can't eat without patis. Like even like just rice and patis.
Yeah.
He's happy.
Yeah.
That's it.
You guys have patis in the house? Of course.
Oh
you
yeah,
do.
and Katrina's like she's a good cook and she watches TikTok, so
Oh, there you go.
she picks up everything in between, But how about you, Paco? Like exposure to
Prior to meeting you, mine was trivial. Like I knew what dialysis was. I didn't know. I thought you went to dialysis and then you went home, and that was it. I didn't know what you went through. But you know how your reticular gets opened when you get exposed.
Yeah.
Like after meeting you, a friend of ours went into dialysis, Jimmy Quinzon, who actually helped work on the DES website. A year later, he went into dialysis, and he was there for over a decade
Oh wow.
until he got his kidney just a few years ago. If I had not known you or what dialysis meant and the gravitas of it being chronic, I wouldn't have been able to move in my career path. In other words, it just opened my eyes.
I can think of today, like talking to somebody on the phone, and they were like, "Hey, I've heard of DaVita. I had family who goes there," and I was like, "Have you heard of any other companies like Fresenius or U.S. Renal Care?" And oh no, I never heard of that. And Fresenius and DaVita are the two biggest
they're
in
competitors,
the country,
yeah.
right? Or in the world actually. And she had never heard of Fresenius, and I was like, just watch when we hang up the phone. And you
see
drive
it.
down the street, you're going to pass three of them, right? Because they're all over the place, right? So like you said, open your eyes. Like you don't know that these little DaVita, Fresenius are actually places that are caring for 20, 30 people every 4 hours, right? And there's 120 people cycling through these clinics a day, right?
Right.
So that's really, I think that's encouraging. And one of the things that my hope is with podcasts, with education, again, is that compound effect, right? So you mentioned that it impacted you personally. In some of the previous episodes that we've shot, we've talked about breaking cycles and change. And, when we worked in COVID, I don't know if you remember the time where we were talking about going into the Hispanic, Latino neighborhoods. Like we could pop up a site to offer free services and stuff like this. Not one person would go. Until we started educating people on a lot of things, the necessity of it, but also even just immigration. Like in certain neighborhoods, like people were scared to go get tested or get care because they didn't want to fall on the radar and take a chance of getting deported, right? So again, just opening your eyes, I think, that's really encouraging for me. That's something we're hoping from the podcast, something we hope from the school. When we teach a student, we hope that they go home and share that information. If it's a Hispanic person, that they share that with the Hispanic, with African American, Asian, Pacific Islander, that they share that with their specific demographic. Because like what we learned in COVID, if you want to reach a Hispanic Latino, it has to be a Hispanic Latino that's relaying that information, right? And is that the same in the Filipino community?
No.
Does a Filipino have to tell a Filipino for a Filipino to listen?
Has to be a white guy.
Has to be.
Colonial mentality.
My wife says the white feet is the part that matters. Like,
But before we land this, I question: isn't it an irony or a paradox that Dialysis Education Services, the school that you run, that sponsors this podcast. Isn't it ironic that we're teaching people to be dialysis techs, and at the same time, we're teaching the general public, we're creating awareness for them to avoid
Yeah. Yeah.
getting ESRD or end-stage renal disease, which, by the way, I learned that acronym just by being exposed to you. I had
Yeah.
to read.
Yeah.
So,
Otherwise,
isn't it?
it's no. I think it is, and it's some people scratch their head at me because when I do participate in teaching, which I usually get sometime with most students in the school, I always emphasize one upstream prevention.
Right, prevention, upstream
And it's
and
like
downstream.
the demographics, the disparities, the neighborhoods, the environments, all that's the myths,
Yeah.
even, right? But we also look at, like, if the need for dialysis, like, where's the best place to go? Like, if you're gonna eat G3, like, would you rather eat at McDonald's or would you rather eat at
Jollibee.
G3's home? Okay, probably. I'll take that one too. All right, McDonald's no, that's not a choice. Okay, Jollibee or home cooking?
Home cooking.
Yeah,
My wife is
She's
is
watching.
watching. Yeah.
I know her very well, so we'll take that save. But in reality, what are you getting if you sacrifice the fast food? Okay, Jollibee's pretty good. What are you doing by your sacrificing that fast food, taking the home cooking? Is
Yeah.
you're getting the love of every slice of meat and vegetable.
Right.
Like when I cook, which is pretty rare, like I cut it the way that I want to put it in my mouth, right?
With purpose, yeah.
Yeah, and then like I clean it like I'm gonna eat it, not like somebody I don't know is gonna eat it, right? So fast food versus home cooking really shouldn't be any comparison, right? If I do dialysis, and I don't mean to make the industry sound like fast food and sloppy or anything like that, but let's say equal knowledge from me as a tech or your best buddy,
me.
like who's gonna wash you better and make sure they prevent it, not drop the chicken on the floor and pick it up and put it in the fryer and fast food, right? It's the family member, the friend, the spouse, or even you yourself. So we promote like home dialysis as I train everybody, and so do my staff. They say, hey, every patient should know about their options. Most people will get it in the center, the fast food. Not enough people will get it at home. And then sometimes people will ask me like, well, if I talk to them too good, right, about home and they go home, then will I still have a job? And I got to say, I haven't planned for that. I haven't. Like, man, it would be so great if the world did not need DES.
Okay.
That would be great. And I will find something else to do. You know what I mean? That's a real dream, to tell you the truth.
Okay,
That's
there
a
you
real,
go. Then we would cover that.
that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
real dream for me, is that like the impact of education and availability and access to care would get the people that could take care of themselves or their family could take care of them to do that, and that we would have less people in the center. So that's irony as well. It's like, if I'm going to teach home dialysis, is an ideal or at least an option that everybody should look at. Does that take away from me as a dialysis technician? Does that take away from me as a business owner of training people who are I still have the higher purpose clearly in sight. I'd rather see people avoid dialysis than need it.
Cool.
Yeah, because it means you care. You care really. That it's in your heart.
Yeah, I mean, there's still
And
plenty
that's
to teach.
admirable. And that's why we admire you. That's why we're behind you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. So let's leave with kind of a last impression and my thought from the conversation today. And you guys feel free to kick back on this, but we met through desire to optimize businesses.
Yeah.
Right. And you guys today, even you have businesses that you're running, that you're, the clay mine, you
Production.
have the podcast, the production, the creatives. So let's kind of focus in on that of like, let's do some business, right? Like, let's go back 15 years ago. And I think you guys gave me great advice back then. So hopefully there's something new, but even if there's not, it's still great advice, right? What's your advice to 2009 or 10 Morales, somebody like Morales, or somebody that's like Paco or G3 in 2009 or 10, wanting to take what we've got, grow it, share it, build businesses. What's your best advice?
Best advice, like I'm like in the old Mike Morales. What would I advise you?
Yeah.
Okay, if we were to go back in time, I would say, hey, Mike, because you were too serious. Mike was too serious. You were very technical, and you kind of left out the marketing piece of it. You found that out later,
I'm
several
still
years
there, man. I'm still the serious. Like, it's very difficult for me to, like I said, I don't want to sell. I want you to want, right?
Yeah. So this system that we're building is good, but then you also have to focus on attracting the people to come. Because even if you have a great system, but if you're not going to be able to use that without any
Marketability.
marketability, then it's just going to sit there. So which you did, like a few years later. We got in touch again, and my wife was like, she's a marketing person, and we started doing things. But I would tell you, hey, you're good at what you do. You're an expert. You just need to see how to, see what the world is doing right now. Like, all these new things that are coming out, and leverage that to just showcase what your product is. And your product is your business, your dialysis education.
I mean, I'm totally aligned with that, because I still don't think I got it. I stand a lot on merit or relationships through merit over the years. So like, even in other roles I have, it's like, well, I know so and so. How do you know? I know them for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
They know that I do this every day. At these sort of things, and I don't have. I need to learn the marketability side still, like marketing, because cold or no knowledge of an individual, no chance for me right now. Like, it's just very difficult, right? But if we known each other 15 years, then you know who I am and why I do it, right? And there's a lot of people besides you guys who also know that side of me, is that, like, I'm gonna wake up at 5:36. I'm gonna get started immediately. I'm gonna probably wake you up. In a lot of cases, I'm gonna probably message you when you're already asleep. These sort of things, right? But when it comes down to, like, trying to sell stuff, and, like, I still have a lot of difficulty there. And no, point well received. It's great advice. I think the way that I've tried to address it, and the way that I would encourage others that are like me, is to make sure that they surround themselves with the right experts.
Not yes men, and
there are people who know what they're doing.
Because you and I have had those conversations.
100 times.
Are we doing this? Nope.
Yep, 100 times. And even on the professional services side, like with accounting and things, I've had similar feedback, as, like, you're always looking for the right answer, even if it's not the one you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think you've actually said that a few times as well to me, is like, you'll take it, right? So 100% agree with you, G3, and something that I hope that one day I'll grow up into. But I'm glad that I've got guys like you that know what you're doing in that regard as well, and starting to build peripherally on the internal team as well, of people that are maybe a little bit more charismatic.
And this is nice what you're doing, because this is out of your comfort zone.
100%.
I'm like a proud dad looking at his son doing.
When I first heard that Michael Morales has a
you're like,
podcast,
no way.
I'm like,
you're like, no.
Are you sure that's the same Mike Morales that I know? Are you sure? Let me take a look. It's him.
He's going to be in the background or something.
Oh my God.
He's behind the camera.
What happened?
I was shooting. I'm the one shooting. I mean, I know I smile a lot more than I did back then, for sure. Because my face was, when I grew up, like, you have to look a certain way.
You improved, because I remember watching a video of you before, like an interview. Were you interviewing? And he was just like
very stiff.
Now
Right?
we have to put that one up for sure, because, like,
you do it before and
he
after.
bothered me so much, G3. It was like when you asked me what event's gonna trigger the thing, right? So he told me, like, when you say the price, do this.
Yes. Yes.
And that was so awkward,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Same question to you, Paco. Like, advice, me or somebody like me, somebody today who's driven, they have a purpose. Maybe they're not marketing type of people. Like, they just know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And what they're doing, right? What's the best advice to grow your business?
So if I
Build your
start
purpose.
if I start with 2009, Mike, I agree that person had to go through the fire that person went through to get to 2024 or to get to now. But my advice to that person is don't lose your grip on the heart, because you've been very generous not only to your family but to G3's family and to my family and to JJ who can't be here. I
Right.
mean, I've seen your guests. I've seen, like, shout out to Dominic, your personal trainer, how you've helped him also with his endeavors.
He needs to help me somewhere right now, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But you're that type of person. Don't lose the heart. At the same time, protect that, because that's how you can get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
My advice to you is be honest with yourself. If the fire is not there anymore, and no matter how hard you fan the flames, the fire is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Walk away.
Yeah. Yep. 100% agree with that. I was kind of thinking about this moment earlier today, like when we talk about what we're going to leave. And we've talked with some people in the past two episodes. One that's like, when you think about an athlete, which I was when I was a kid, right? I was a fighter, martial artist. It was all about discipline, right? When you talk about, we met with
Jonathan Diaz,
as a registered dietitian, and kind of how to flip the circumstance in life. It was about, like, I think he said, like, kind of throw it on the floor and step on it, what you're used to or what you're holding as sentimental, right? We talked about even Mike Tyson and
Right.
the definition of discipline, right?
Yeah.
So for me, hearing what you guys said is like, I knew what I could do, and I was confident in that. I could teach people how to do what I love to do and what I cared about doing. I didn't really have big dreams about scaling, to be honest with you. It was just like teach the people that were before me, right? I've been through a lot as a business owner, from the times of fluctuation, COVID, trials and tribulations as a business owner, consumer relationships, things like this. 15 years later, I just feel like I showed up every day and it all worked out. You know what I mean? And like people in the gym say that, right? Like, just show up.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some days it sucked, man. Like it really sucked. And again, I've never like said like I'm doing something I don't want to do, but there have been plenty of damn hard days. Plenty of days where there was question to what's tomorrow hold financially. There's a lot of gamble in starting a business, right? And having expenses, right? It's like adulting, right? Now you got responsibilities, people that, not their livelihood, right? Employees, clients, things like this. So it's, for me, it was just the thing. I showed up every day, on time, every time. That was my discipline. I knew what I was doing when I'm there, right? I know what my assignment is. 15 years later, opportunities are starting to really open up. The ability to scale, the opportunity to scale through investment. I never thought I would be there to where somebody will invest that kind of money
Right.
into what we're doing, right? And we've got a large fund from Europe that has invested in us as a partner and is looking towards the next, 5-10 years towards really a large contributor to their portfolio. So again, show up on time every time. Keep, like you said, don't lose the heart.
Yeah.
I try that, to not lose focus of the people who are in the journey, and there's been quite a few. So along with that discipline and surrounding yourself with the right people, I would say that there's a certain sense of like emotional and social intelligence that you should try and pick up on when working with people. Kids know good people, animals know good people. I think business owners need to learn how to know good people too. Who you gotta be with in 15 years. You know what I mean?
Who are you gonna market to his point?
Yeah. Did that strike something in you? Three?
Yeah, I did. Oh, you know what? There's one thing that I don't know. It might be a piece of advice or a question. Like, I have a question for you. Do you still get to outside of work, do you still get to enjoy life as doing a hobby or anything like that? Because I've always known you as like a workaholic.
Right?
Yeah, that's. I don't know if one day I'm gonna come to the conclusion that I'm not enjoying life. I don't know if I'm gonna come to that conclusion, but if I'm somewhere and I'm in a social event, I'm thinking about getting back to work.
It's yeah.
Are you
I've
the
always
same thing?
thought I've always thought of him as
Yeah.
does Mike ever
Yeah.
get does he ever relax and
Yeah.
not think of work, because every time we talk, it's about business.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I don't feel like it's a work. I feel like it's a purpose. And out of all honesty, like I got to be focused on something, and I could be focused on a lot of worse things than work.
Yeah.
You guys know me long enough to know
Yeah.
that. So I'd rather be focused
On work.
on work, and I own a business, and I work for a business that I work remotely, so I can move around as I please for the most part. I can be there with my family. Two of them work with me. So if you ask me, like, what do I do for fun? It is work. Honestly, it is. Are there things that I do that I enjoy? It's like, yeah, making memories with family, but I'm not like the big advent. We went to Cancun recently. I did 2 of the adventures. They did like 7, right? I stayed in the hotel and worked and ate, and
And you were fine.
that was good.
Family's there? Everybody's out of town?
Yeah. So business has afforded me the luxury of that, of working and enjoying what I'm doing and being around family while I'm doing it, and then even incorporating them into the business to where, one of my daughters a nurse, the other one is working in sales here, but the one who's a nurse is like looking more towards business now. Like she's like, wow, this is a legitimate help to society, right? Like I'm a nurse. I can work 12 hours in a nursing home and only do what I can do, or I can teach people, like I said, and everybody who I teach, that's like compounding my effect
Exactly.
on community and society. So that really
what
gives me
gives
a kick.
you peace of mind?
I would say that, that there is a compounding of that as I get older, because when I started, you guys know my kids were
Young.
Were young. Now, 3 of them are adults. Is kind of, to be quite honest with you, like there are times where I'm trying to bridge maybe gaps that have been created from being such a workaholic, and I don't deny that at all. Like there are things that are missed from wanting to fulfill your
Sacrifices.
purpose.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And being a father is definitely purpose number 1, but there are also sacrifices on like certain luxury or recreational type of activities.
What is your purpose?
I'm serving my purpose for sure. For sure. It is to educate, to through that education improve care. It's to bring awareness. Because I don't really need to have a student to educate, right? Like I've gravitated probably in the last 7 or 8 years towards more evangelism, and there doesn't have to be a reward for what goes out.
That is the reward. To evangelize is the reward.
Yeah, and I should say there doesn't have to be like a financial
Right. Oh,
incentive
financial gain.
or gain from the things that I do. Like I really believe that if we're evangelizing, like I said, people can avoid it. Fine, I'll find another business, right? But at the same time, like when we evangelize, more people are aware of professional careers. So it's like a double-edged sword.
It actually makes sense, because now when you evangelize about it, more people are inspired to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And so they end up enrolling in the school.
So I'll give you an example. We went to Bellflower High School, which is about a mile up the road, last April. We did a couple. We did a field trip there, then we invited them here and just introduced them to kidney awareness, right? Like there's a lot of people with diabetes, a lot of people with hypertension, a lot of people overweight in this country. A lot of those people end up with chronic kidney disease, right? And it's in Bellflower, so most of the kids were Latino, Hispanic, African American. And I asked them, I said, how many of you know somebody who has type 2 diabetes? Every hand went up, every one of them. How about high blood pressure? Every hand. How many of you know somebody on dialysis? A bunch of them. How many of you know what a dialysis technician is, like 1 or 2. So they all had this connection to what I teach and do, right? Because they know diabetics and hypertensive and people with kidney failure, but they didn't know there was a whole workforce in helping these people to survive and
Right.
to live their life, right? So for me, when we went to that high school, one thing is we talked about, diabetes, hypertension incidence among this demographic and how you're predisposed to it just because of your ethnicity and your demographic, right? But also there are a lot of people because of those chronic illnesses that end up in need of care, and there's this whole profession. So for me, it was like I didn't care if we got a student out of it. At least we went and talked to 30, 40 kids about their predisposition to diabetes and hypertension, and they went home going like, yeah, my dad, my mom, my auntie, this and that, right? One visit with them, right? I went to their school. Then we invited the same group here. So 2 total interactions. We had 6 people that want to enroll out of like 30 or 40 students that wanted to enroll in the program. I don't know how many of those others realized that like, oh my God, my mom and dad are diabetic and I'm probably going to be diabetic, or I am already diabetic and I don't want to have kidney failure. So for me, that's like, I would like as I get older to just focus on that. You know what I mean? Like let the business run itself, like set up systems, right? Databases. And then just be able to do that sort of stuff, like talk to people and introduce them to the awareness of, be aware of kidney injuries, kidney health, kidney care, and the profession of taking care of people who have missed the mark in some cases or not been able to prevent it. So hopefully I answered your question, Ethan. Guys, really appreciate the time. I know it's been a late night and it's a long drive for you guys, but again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
And for being my friend for the last 15 years and for all the things you guys have done and that you will do, that we'll do together in the future.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. To the next data.
Save
The
that
next
out.
database.
Yeah.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.